Greetings, my name's James Wallerstedt, and I'm creating this video to introduce a document and educational initiative that I refer to as the New Energy Declaration. This is something that I came up with the idea for in the summer of 2010, 3 years ago, and in the intervening period of the last 3 years, after an initial group of about 6 people endorsed that declaration at my request, I have simply felt that it's a bit premature to introduce this document and to expect its larger circulation. In a nutshell, the New Energy Declaration requests a very high-level and open review of commercially viable energy and transportation technologies that have been locked down via application of Section 181 of the 1951 Invention Secrecy Act. The 1951 Invention Secrecy Act is something that most Americans and most people in the world have never even heard of, but it's part of the national security legislation of the immediate post-World War II era, including the 1947 National Security Act, the 1949 CIA Act, and this 1951 Invention Secrecy Act. In recent decades, there's been approximately 5,000 patents locked down under Section 181 national security, quote-unquote, provisions. Of those, the best anecdotal and whistleblower evidence and research that our group of committed volunteers has undertaken in recent years has been able to come up with indicates that several hundred commercially viable revolutionary energy and transportation technologies have been locked down for decades under Section 181. And some of these cases where we know that there's no significant weapons potential involved, such as the Stan Myers water car technologies that were served to Section 181, we feel involve very significant abuses of national security provisions and federal government powers. Federal governments are formed by the true sovereigns of our world, which are human beings. And we as human beings periodically form or in major ways reform governments, and this involves lending our natural, if you will, God-given sovereignty to a governmental form that is established to follow certain rules and procedures set forth. I think it's safe to say that in the post-World War II era, this military-industrial complex that Dwight Eisenhower warned us about in his farewell speech to the nation in the early 60s is something that has grown sort of out of control and has had a cancerous effect, a very deleterious effect on the principles of an accountable and open government of, by, and for the people. Because let's remember that when the U.S. government was formed, when the debates of the Federalist Papers and the constitutional ratification processes were underway, the principle of checks and balances between government branches, separation of church and state, of course, the hope of having a vibrant fourth estate, quote-unquote, media watchdog, all of this was to establish a government that would not be easily corrupted by the money powers and would not devolve into secret clans running things behind the scenes with a different version of events given to the peasantry and to the common folk. These things had been the practices and the experiences of governance in Europe, the royal governments, the feudal system, the governments of Rome. All of these things had devolved into elite cliques, secrecy, etc. And when we formed our federal government in the late 18th century, it was a key objective of some of the most principled active thinkers of that time to try as much as possible to avoid these kinds of cancerous and harmful corrupting influences in our new United States government. But unfortunately, it seems to be the case that regardless how hopeful your beginnings are as a society and whatever steps might be taken forward in any given era, there also seems to be a kind of natural decline that comes and over time is augmented by material success and by power, that these things have tended to have seeds of their own destruction or decay within them as societies mature. The good news about this from my standpoint, I'm recording this in August of 2013, is that even though the economy in the United States and the government situation is in a bad way right now, the good news about that is that it's providing us with an opportunity for reinvention in major ways. And my hope and expectation is that this new energy declaration can be part of that reinvention process, calling for, from within the bowels of our top secret, highly classified national security state structures, a review of revolutionary energy and transportation technologies that our world desperately needs to be released and to be distributed in an accelerated manner. I propose too at least a loose-knit, internet-based, citizens grand jury type or grassroots-oriented truth and reconciliation process in the coming years to look into these topics. And I would like to see develop a restorative justice mechanism whereby groups that are at the heart of this military-industrial complex that Eisenhower warned us about, that have been the extraordinary beneficiaries of really extremely artificially expensive revenues to the global energy sector for decades and decades, get behind a plan to see the accelerated release and distribution of a handful of the most promising revolutionary energy and transportation technologies heretofore locked down and suppressed from circulation. In any event, it is certainly time that the people of our country and of the world demand the release of these long-suppressed, clean, revolutionary energy and transportation technologies and reject any appeals to national security thinking excuses that have been used so far, at least in private and secret councils, to protect status quo powers from change and really to prevent some of the most hopeful, positive developments that can and should occur to free humanity from the unnecessary financial burdens and taxations and erosions to quality of life posed by this needlessly expensive, polluting, and problematic energy sector of our world. So I would ask you please to consider endorsing the new Energy Declaration document, helping us to circulate it to others. My feeling is that it can be an important educational and grassroots activism organizing centerpiece in this larger project of reinventing and cleaning up our government structures and establishing a much better and more hopeful future for ourselves and for future generations. Thank you.